It's me. Hi, the goose on the internet. Today I want to talk to you about something that's really been irking me. Now, I say irking as if I'm annoyed, but the irk is more of a gentle tickle in my brain that I had to do something about. You see, sometime last summer, I found myself coming home late one night on the London Underground, specifically the Northern Line. Now, this is a journey that I take with alarming regularity. On this occasion, I was with a friend. And before you ask, yes, we were likely somewhat intoxicated, and we found ourselves having a very normal conversation about the tube map. And as our eyes drifted upwards through the beer haze, fixating on the map of the Northern Line, we found ourselves intrigued by one thing in particular: the Clapham trilogy of stations. If you're unfamiliar, that is, from north to south, Clapham North, Clapham Common, and Clapham South. Now, we were both familiar with the logistics and going-ons of transport in South London, so our conversation turned to the glaring oddity in this trio of stops, or rather, the glaring omission. Why doesn't Clapham Junction have a tube station? So we knew from our previous shenanigans that the Clapham trilogy stations were nowhere near Clapham Junction, and Clapham Junction is a busy train station that lots of folks from around the country have regular business in going to. Now, I must confess, originally I was thinking, why doesn't Clapham Junction have a tube station? So, at this point in the video, I must acknowledge the London Overground, which you will see as part of the tube map. Clapham Junction does indeed serve as the southern terminus of both the Mildmay and Windrush lines. Now, despite being under the concession control and branding of Transport for London, as the name implies, the Overground is not part of the Underground. So, let me redefine this nonsensical video essay. Why doesn't Clapham Junction have a station on the London Underground? And more specifically, why does it not have a station with the other Claphams on the Northern Line? The Northern Line itself has a complex history, so for you train nerds out there, and I know you're watching, please forgive my oversimplification of the matter. The Northern Line originally opened 135 years ago on the 18th of December 1890. It was initially known as the City and South London Railway, and it was renamed to the Northern Line in 1937. Turns out its history is woven with mergers of other lines and new expansions, some of which have been as recent as 2021 when the line was expanded through Nine Elms to Battersea Power Station. For those of you who are less familiar with the London Underground, it is the black line on the tube map, and it currently consists of 52 stations. It is really worth pointing out that the Northern Line is notable for a bunch of reasons, but I'm going to focus on two, because we have limited time in this video. The first thing I want to point out to you is it's really busy. Like, really busy. Imagine we were running a simple experiment. We took every single person living in London and put them through the Northern Line in a calendar year. You still would be nowhere near the number of people that use the Northern Line per year. So we hop over the Atlantic and we borrow the entire population of the United States of America and then put them through the Northern Line in addition to everyone from London who we've already put through the line. And then you would be about right. That's a lot of people. It is unique on the Underground network in having two different routes through central London and having two southern branches and also having two northern branches. Yet despite its name, it does not serve the northernmost stations on the Underground, which is a title held by the oldest tube line, the Metropolitan line, which terminates at Chesham Station. However, it does serve the southernmost station at Morden, which, by the way, is where I had the worst KFC experience of my life. In fact, of the 32 tube stations which are south of the River Thames, that's about 12% of them, by the way, which hurts as someone who lives in South London, 17 of those are on the Northern Line. Short and long of it, the Northern Line has a really significant presence south of the river compared to the other lines. So, knowing what you now know about the Northern Line serving so much of South London, I simply am going to have to take a detour to talk about why it is in fact called the Northern Line. Where did that name come from? And oh baby, did I go on an adventure researching this one. So, at one point, the line was known as the Morden to Edgware Line, although a number of alternative names were also proposed. In 1906, the Baker Street and Waterloo Railway was renamed to the Bakerloo Line after everyone contracted the name. So eventually, after everyone was calling it the Bakerloo Line, The powers that be were like, okay, let's just call it the Bakerloo Line. And when the question of naming the Northern Line came about, they took this fashion and proposed names such as Edgemoor, Mordenware, Medway, and Edgemorden. My favourite fact that I uncovered during this adventure was that it was almost named the Tutankhamden Line, as it passed through both Tooting and Camden. And since the, at the time, recent discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun in 1922, Egyptology was very much in fashion. But the name Northern Line was eventually adopted in 1937, and it was intended to reference a substantial new extension that was going to be completed between 1935 and 40, a program that was known as the Northern Heights Plan. Due to the war, the second of the two, this was never fully completed, but it did give us the branch to High Barnet. And at this point I really wanted to go down quite the rabbit hole on the Northern Heights, but I let self-control take over, and I've shelved this for a future video maybe? Anyone? No? So then, after my adventures with the Northern Line, I decided to take a look at Clapham Junction, and I was ready to fill this video with facts highlighting in how important it is as a London train station, when Wikipedia threw me this gem of a curveball. Despite its name, Clapham Junction is not in Clapham, which is a district 1 mile to the southeast. Clapham Junction is not in Clapham. It is in Battersea, in the borough of Wandsworth. This might have you asking, why, Goose on the internet, why is this train station called Clapham Junction when it is not in Clapham? Great question, viewer. According to the bestofsouthwestlondon.com, the answer comes from social perceptions of the time. So back in the 1860s, Clapham was considered a more desirable and fashionable area compared to Battersea, which at the time was a less attractive suburb. The railway companies wanted to attract a, let's say, wealthier clientele, so they decided to name it Clapham Junction rather than Battersea Junction, hoping it would add a degree of prestige and conveniently hoping no one would notice the geographical inaccuracy. Okay, how am I dealing with this? Everything I thought I knew and everything I hold true is unraveling. Wait, no, this is good, this is juicy, this is a huge part of explaining why. This new information actually holds the key to everything, but I'm gonna save that for later. So, right, back on track. Get it? Clapham Junction is a major transport hub. It opened back in 1863 when rail companies decided to open a station to serve 3 separate rail lines, which, coincidentally, had found themselves running alongside each other due to having to divert construction around the protected space of Clapham Common. The good news was, no one cared about protecting Wandsworth Common, so they just built the tracks over that one instead. The station itself has 17 platforms, but 16 of which are in use, and it recorded over 22 million passenger journeys between 2023 and 2024, making it the 18th busiest station in Great Britain. If you were wondering, and I know you were, there are 2,578 train stations in Great Britain. It also happens to be the only railway station in the GB that sees more people using it as an interchange than as an entry or exit point. Sounds like a pretty good place to put an underground interchange, eh? Oh yeah, the overground. All southern services from London Victoria and southwestern services from Waterloo funnel through the station, making it the busiest in Europe by numbers of trains using it. Between 100 and 180 per hour pass through from 5 a.m. to midnight. And it turns out Clapham Junction is certainly not just for London. It is on both the South West Main Line and the Brighton Main Line, which go to Weymouth and Brighton respectively. So, if you want to get to the south part of England, you are likely going via Clapham Junction. It is also served by the Gatwick Express, so international visitors to the UK will often pass through Clapham Junction. And at one point, the station was also planned to be used as a stop on the proposed Heathrow Air Track, a project that was cancelled in 2011. This would have recognised Clapham Junction's importance in connecting the city to Heathrow Airport, which is currently the airport with the most international connections in the world. And this project would have put a journey time of around 30 minutes between the station and the airport on the cards, had plans actually gone ahead. Okay, It's cool. It's clear that Clapham Junction is a very busy station with lots of links to various parts of the south of England. So I think it is fair to say that it's an important station, especially when you consider the Goose train station importance definition scale. So, why no tube station? Why does the Northern Line go through 3 other stops in nearby actual Clapham, but didn't feel the need to have one for such an important train station? Well, it turns out there are actually a few reasons. As mentioned, Clapham Junction was created to serve the mainline and suburban rail networks, rather than the brand new underground network, with the first tube line only opening 2 months prior in January 1863. No one cared about the tube yet, and even if they did, the focus of the underground was to serve the City of London and the central areas, which was the complete opposite of Clapham Junction's purpose. It is, however, fair to say that the transport network has evolved just a tad in the years since 1863, and you would have thought there had been numerous opportunities to reassess the presence of a tube station at Clapham Junction. So I'm asking, why has it not happened in the 160 years since? Turns out one of the reasons probably lies with the original progenitor of this whole video essay. When it opened, what we now know as the Northern Line only went as far south as Stockwell, with extensions down to Clapham Road, now called Clapham North, and Clapham Common completed in 1900. And at this point, Clapham Junction had been around for almost 40 years, but still it was decided serving Clapham Common rather than Clapham Junction was more important as it was becoming increasingly urbanised, with more residential housing being developed. Extending the line to Clapham Common provided better access for residents travelling to work or leisure destinations in the city. The extension down to Morden in 1926 was also given the go-ahead for similar reasons, and due to its location near the boundary of Greater London at the time, it was a logical endpoint for the line. And as a result of these decisions, Clapham Junction is close to 3 Clapham-branded stops on the Northern Line, and this proximity was deemed sufficient to serve the area, rather than diverting the entire line during construction, because, not actually in Clapham and all that. As previously mentioned, in more recent times, the station is actually already well connected by London Overground lines, reducing the immediate need for a dedicated tube stop. So despite a goose on the internet trying to make a convincing case for the creation of a new stop on the Underground, there's apparently a lack of necessity for a Clapham Junction tube station. And, there's also, infrastructure challenges. It goes without saying that nowadays the area around Clapham Junction is pretty densely built, leaving limited room to construct a new tube station or connect existing lines. Extending existing tube lines to Clapham Junction or building new tunnels would involve a significant engineering challenge. And a ton of money. And let's not even begin to talk about the disruption it would cause to commuters. Wait, did I just say extending existing tube lines? Yes, viewer, I did. Remember us talking about the Northern Line getting expanded to Battersea Power Station in 2021? Well, where is Battersea Power Station? Battersea. Where is Clapham Junction? Battersea. In 2014, there was a public inquiry into the Battersea Power Station extension, and it found that an extension to Clapham Junction would be desirable, but the aim of the extension was to serve 9 Elms and the regeneration area around Battersea Power Station itself. And this is how the latest Northern Line extension ended up. 2 extra stops, both at 9 Elms and Battersea Power Station. But it's not over yet. An underground route to Clapham Junction, roughly under Battersea Park, is apparently safeguarded so that the line can once again be extended in the future. Richard D. Canny, Transport for London's Director of Transport Strategy, well, at least he was in 2013, tried to do a bit of research for this one. His LinkedIn makes it look like he still is, but I can't be certain. So let's go with he's still the Director of Transport Strategy. Anyway, back in 2013, he said, before construction on the extension started, that this work would be designed to allow for further extension. He added, Clapham Junction is a hugely significant destination and interchange point. The plans for the Northern Line allow for an extension of the lines to Battersea to go to Clapham Junction. And that's why we've planned the Northern Line extension as we have, so it can be included in the future. And that's why it's included in the options for the Crossrail 2 consultation. Clearly, Mr. DeCanny agrees with the goose that it's worth putting a tube station at Clapham Junction. But he also drops another little gem in that statement. Crossrail 2. There was Crossrail 1, which went ahead and is now called the Elizabeth Line, which opened in 2022. Crossrail 2 was a plan for a new line on the network, crossing across London, clued in the name, and in the 2010s, a Clapham Junction station was proposed as a stop on Crossrail 2. The plan was to dig a large underground station underneath the existing station. Yes, a tube station. Unfortunately, unlike the Lizzie line, it's unlikely Crossrail 2 will ever see the light of day, as the project was indefinitely postponed in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But, just like the potential Northern Line extension, the route has been safeguarded should the day ever come to resume work. The short and long of it, viewer, is that for the last 160 years, it has been repeatedly decided that Clapham Junction simply didn't need an underground station. But it is closer to reality than ever thanks to the construction and proposals that have taken place in just the last decade. When I set out to make this video and answer the question my friend and I first had on that late summer night, I thought I would be trying to answer the question as to why there is no underground station at Clapham Junction. But in actual fact, the question should have been more specific. Why isn't there a stop at Clapham Junction on the Northern Line? No. Ironically, with the future-proofing that took place during the construction of the Battersea Power Station extension, if we do end up with a tube station there, it will, in fact, be on the Northern Line. There you go. That's your answer. I went on a many-hour-long research mission for you, so you don't have to. Thank me later. Before I did any research for this video, I really was expecting to go down a rabbit hole of geological maps and conspiracy theory style revelations around budget cuts and TfL politics. I asked myself back then, all wide-eyed and excited to start uncovering the truth. Is it geological? Is it financial? What's the logic? Well, turns out it's just in the wrong place, and I probably should have just looked at a map. See you next time.